Before we get into this video, I would just like to say that I got this early access for free from Creative Assembly. That does not mean that they have paid me. That means that they gave me the early access for free and nothing else. All these opinions are my own. I've not been paid to say the game's good or the game's bad or the game is whatever. These are all my opinions. So thanks for that early access here. But if you do want to buy me out, then I'll put my PayPal in the description below, and that'd be just fantastic. You should also know that this is a in-development version of the game, which means that it's not complete. So you may see some things such as people not popping in when they are supposed to, some textures are a little bit wonky, some sounds are a little bit wonky. All this stuff is in early access, so it's subject to change in the next however many weeks until the game comes out. Okay? Cool. So in today's video, as I hopefully have mentioned yesterday, I'm going to be going over a brief, as brief as I can, overview of all the mechanics in Troy, and then a little bit later on this video I'm going to be talking about the Menelaus campaign, which is the Spartan dude that gets cooked when Paris steals Helen of Troy. One more thing before we get into this, I'm running this on max settings with a 8700K and a 2070 Super, so, you know, it runs fine. It runs, everything is on max settings and the game looks okay, and I didn't really experience any frame drops apart from like occasional things with the turn timer and like a really large scale battle. Apart from that, the game runs fine. I suppose that does bring us to a good place to start with how the game looks. It looks fine. It's not incredible, but you know, Total War games aren't really about their visual fidelity, it's more about, you know, the grand scale of everything that's going on. So the map is very, very large and has, you know, nice details here and there. There are some really subtle things that they do to make the world feel more alive. Like when you're looking at the campaign map, there are clouds that slowly come overhead and, you know, fade over the land and the sea, and it looks really nice. Waves also constantly hit the shore, so it all just kind of makes the world feel more alive and look more beautiful than it actually is if you really zoom into it and look at the details. Character models are okay and unit models are passable. But to be honest, coming from Warhammer 2, where everything is, you know, a massive work of art, like a fantastic lizard on a Triceratops, or, you know, a rat on a mechanical doom wheel, I suppose I am going to be a bit disappointed by, you know, a more... I know it's not strictly a historic game, but it's not a, you know, super high fantasy of all these different units, so of course I'm going to be a little bit disappointed. But they all look just fine. All the units look, you know, as good as they can for a Total War game. One thing I do really like about the campaign map is when you zoom right in and it pans your view upwards, so you're basically looking flat on in the background, rather than having just, you know, an empty skybox or something that repeats, looks a bit shit. What they did was they got the pottery art that they use for all loading screens and stuff and just made some lovely mountains in the background. I think that looks absolutely great and really helps immerse you in the mythic world. Even if it isn't immersing you in a realistic world, it makes you feel like, oh, I'm in the myths here. It's very cool. I like it. Everything looks really good, apart from one thing which I found was really sticking out. It was this advisor guy. He looks like a claymation Jesus or God. Again, this is an early access development build of the game, so they might fix this before the game comes out, but if they don't, I think it looks a little bit dodgy and could probably do with, you know, a little bit of work, because that beard, it looks like it clips on. It's whack, y'all. So that's the only thing I found that doesn't look really good to me. Sound's also pretty nice. All of the buttons have a nice tactile sound, so you know you've clicked it. There's a nice boom, click, boom.
With Ajax by my side.
There's everything that you need when you are clicking a button, so that you get the feedback to know that you have clicked that button and you haven't, you know, accidentally not clicked it. The music as well, I really like it. It's got this, you know, very subtle, relaxing feel that gets you really immersed in the game, and it's one of those that you could just listen to for hours and they just pass by and you have no idea. I'll play the music now, but it's just kind of this really gentle, flowing music with like occasional bits of, I don't know what it's called, but like a Greek sounding guitar. It's just ding 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 every now and then. I think it sounds really cool. I like it, okay? The sound in Battle is a little bit janky, the music is just fine, but the battle sounds, it's just like, there's loads of random sword and arrow flinging sounds, but they don't really seem to be related to anything. It's just kind of like, our units in Battle, yes, play sound file, rather than, you know, going into the detail of when swords clash or whatever, play a sound file. I think they could probably just leave those sorts of sounds out, because it kind of just takes it away, because it sounds like you're watching a battle and then just hearing something completely different in your ears, and it's very disorienting. So I'm not the biggest fan of that, but again, early access build, they might change how that works, so we'll have to wait and see. I'm just going to say that a lot. In fact, I'm not going to say it anymore. I'm just going to say, all this is subject to change, so, you know, if there's something I don't like, it could change. We'll see. If there's something I do like, it could change as well. The turn times, they're fine, they're fast enough. You know, when I'm coming from Mortal Empires, anything feels fast to me, so I'll click end turn, I'll put up a thing on screen now and show you how fast it is. It's really not that long, and it's just fine, so not really anything to say here. Now, getting into the actual systems of the game. In Troy, we have a new resource system. Like normally, you know, we just have gold, maybe a couple of other things, you know, like food. In this one, we have 5 resources. We have food, wood, stone, bronze, and gold. Yeah, it's a lot to manage, believe me. So each resource is used for different things, you know, such as wood and stone are mostly used for buildings, bronze and food are used for units. Many different resources can be used for many different things, and I haven't played far enough into the game, or I can't physically get far enough into the game to work out what every single resource goes into every single different thing, but they're all going to be used for different things. That's all you need to know, really. They also can be spent via upkeep, so you do need to make sure that you are producing enough to support yourself and also make some surplus so that you can buy things. So it does kind of add, you know, a massive balancing act to the game that we haven't really seen before, because normally it's just gold, you know? You just make more gold and then you can buy more things and make more gold. Even if you have upkeep, you make more gold. It's fairly straightforward. But with this, it's like, okay, so these units are going to take some bronze, so I need to up my bronze production to make sure that I'm still making enough bronze to be able to buy this building a little bit later on. And while those soldiers are using bronze, they're also using food, but when they have used that food, they're going to use food for upkeep, so I need to make sure that I'm producing more food so that I can support that upkeep and also keep bringing in the surplus food that I'm bringing. So it's a lot of things to think about. It's kind of like, you know, we just have gold. Now, you have to think about that for 5 other things at once, so it does add a lot of depth to the game, and I didn't like it when I first tried it out. I found it very difficult to manage, and like, it was just too many things to think about, but the more I played around with it, I did start to, you know, enjoy the challenge and enjoy thinking, okay, well, this is the resource I need to prioritize. You know, instead of prioritizing upgrading this one, I'm going to upgrade this one because this is what I'm using the most at the moment. I think it adds a nice level of depth and challenge that a lot of players will really enjoy. Royal decrees are basically research. They're just called something different. You know, they offer the same things that most research trees do in every single game. You know, reduce unit upkeep, increase growth, increase public order, which is now called happiness, increase influence, which is a new thing, which I'll come to in a moment. You know, it's all these standard things. They are separated into a few different trees. You have one that is led by each of the 5 resources. So there's one that's led by food, wood, stone, gold, bronze. They do have vaguely themed trees, like food encourages growth and light unit recruitment. Wood helps military construction and ranged recruitment. Gold improves heavy infantry and some miscellaneous things. Stone helps happiness and influence, and bronze helps medium units and some agents. So they all are vaguely themed, but if you've ever done a research tree before in a game, you pretty much know how it's going to work. You know, some of them are going to cost resources, some are going to take longer than others, some of them are going to produce resources. It's fairly standard. Not much to say. Now, diplomacy, I think, has been much improved since Warhammer 2. They've clearly taken a page out of the Three Kingdoms book, where you can actually see the chances of doing this deal. Oh my god, guys, it's the best thing. You know, rather than just saying, you have a moderate chance of doing this, or you have a low chance of doing this, you can see what the chance actually is. So say I want to get, you know, a non-aggression pact with whoever. I can click on that, and it says, okay, it's -5 or whatever, or it's +6. And then I can think, okay, well, if it's -5, I need to sweeten the deal on my side so I can give them some resources, and vice versa. If the deal's really sweet on my side, then I can get some resources off them, and they're still going to accept it. Or, if you can't be bothered whatsoever, just put a deal in, and then just say, make this work for me, and then the computer will think, boop, 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 okay, this is what it's going to take to work, and then it'll just present the deal to you, which you can then tweak. It's fantastic. It's the best. You can also do a thing called ultimatums, which is basically, you accept this deal, or we are going to war. So if you are a really strong military powerhouse, and people don't want to do deals with you to support you, then you can say, well, if you don't do this deal, I'm going to go to war with you, and that'll probably make them accept it. So it's a really nice addition. I really hope they port this into Warhammer 3, because if you haven't guessed, I'm kind of hoping out for Warhammer 3. Troy's all well and good, but Warhammer 3 is where it's going to be at for me. Now, you can either set your own custom deals, as I mentioned before, or you can go to a thing called quick deals, which you basically click over to this tab and you click, okay, non-aggression pact, military alliances, you know, all the different things you can do in a game, and it shows you the statistics of every single faction that you know of accepting that. So, you know, it'll just say, okay, non-aggression pact. Well, these have, you know, a +10, these have a -5, these have a +1. So you can see who's going to accept each of those deals, and then you can just, boom, go into the deal and tweak it from there. It's fantastic. Now, with the diplomacy system combined with the new resource system, you can see how many resources the other faction has as well as what you have. And if another faction has a massive surplus of some resources, then those resources are going to be worth much less than them. So if you are struggling for food and a faction you're doing a deal with has a lot of food, then you can get a hell of a lot of food out of them because they don't really value it, you know, just for doing, you know, say, oh, I'm just going to do a military access pact with whoever, and I need a lot of food, so I'm just going to get some food off them. They'll be like, sure, we have loads, we can pass it around, it's not really worth much to us. It's fantastic. But likewise, if they don't have much of a resource like gold, then it will be very valuable to them, and getting just one piece of gold for them will take a tremendous amount of, you know, feedback on your side to think, okay, well, you really need to make this worth it if I'm going to give you this gold. Again, it's another thing that I really enjoy, but it does come with the added complexity. So, you know, if you don't enjoy the added complexity, you might not enjoy this. But if you do, then it's there, and I think it's pretty sweet. Now, Divine Will is one of the more mythological parts of Troy. And what it basically is you can get favour of, how many different gods are there? I can't remember how many gods there are because I'm bad and don't write my notes properly. But basically, there are so many gods in the game, and you can get favour with each one of them. And depending on what god you get favour with, you will get different bonuses, and most of these bonuses are themed. So I remember Aphrodite, she was all about happiness and influence. So if you get really good favour with her, she's going to make sure all your cities are happy, make sure you have loads of influence. It's just fantastic. But if you want to get some favour with Ares, then he's obviously going to improve your front line because, he's the god of war. It's kind of his whole deal to be, a fantastic fighter, so he's going to make your fighters better. Every single god has unique effects. I'm just going to put them on screen as I'm speaking over this. You've probably been watching them for a while now. But all you need to know is they all have a different specialization, and the further up you go, the better it gets for that specialization. You're also not limited to getting the favour of just one god. If you want to, get the favour of every single god in the game, it'll be a lot of work, but you can definitely do that. Now, to get favour, you can do it via a variety of methods. You can build temples and settlements and upgrade them, and you can build a temple to any god that you want. Worth noting, by the way, these bonuses are permanent, so if it's the, 150 favour bonus, that bonus will stay there forever, it won't decay. And also, you can change these buildings, so you click on it, and then you just go, I want to change the deity. So if you have, if you've got a temple to Athena, but you kind of want to, get Ares' bonuses, then you can do that and just say, okay, I'm going to convert this to a temple of Ares, and it'll do that at a reduced cost than if you had to dismantle it and then rebuild it again. So it's pretty great there. Also worth noting, they can only be built in large settlements, and they also provide buffs even if you don't have the favour of that specific god. So if you have a temple of whoever, you're still going to get the bonuses that temple says, even if you don't have a high level of favour with that god. So that's pretty great. You can also conduct hecatombs, which are basically sacrifices to these gods, and what these will grant you is a large amount of favour with this god, but this amount will slowly decay over time. You can repeat the hecatombs to get more favour, but it's going to cost you more food each time, and again, it will continually delay. So if you want sustained favour with your gods, you're going to need to build a lot of altars. Now, prayers are something you can do to each of the gods once again, but they don't gain you any favour, instead they gain you a specific bonus. So, if you pray to Poseidon, he will give you, I believe it's immunity to sea attrition, as well as some other things, and likewise, if you pray to any of the other gods in the game, you're going to get some specific bonuses to them. So it's a nice thing to do, say, if you, are trying to get the favour of one of the gods, but you actually need the bonus by praying to another one, you can do it that way, and it's very fantastic. Now, both of these things cost resources. Normally it's food, might be a couple of other things, so it is an investment, so you need to make sure you are sure with what you are doing before you do it. And you need to make sure that you click the right god, because if you get the wrong favour and then you don't get to that next tier, you're going to be very sad. So make sure. Yeah, overall, this system, I think it's pretty cool, it's pretty interesting. It's a nice part that adds a bit more fantasy to this historic setting, even though it's not historic, yes, I know. But I quite like it. Some people might not like it because it seems to have an unfair advantage just for, something that isn't realistic. But my favourite Warhammer game's Warhammer 2, I don't really care. I think it's great. And if you feel like me, then you'll think it's great. Now, moving on to province management in Troy. Population is pretty much the same as it's always been. Build growth buildings, get growth surplus, upgrade your settlements, nothing really new here. Now, there is something new with minor settlements. Now, normally, or at least in Warhammer 2, you build a settlement, it's just a settlement, it just sits there and then you build things in it to gain resources. In Troy, every single minor settlement has a resource, so it'll have food, or stone, or wood, or gold, or bronze, and then the further you upgrade that settlement, the more it will produce, and then you can also build buildings within the settlement to increase the production even further. It sounds very complicated, but it's actually fairly straightforward. Now, happiness is the new public order, and again, it's pretty much the same thing that it's always been. Armies being there, characters being there, different buildings increase it, and likewise they can decrease it, so, just make sure it's green, because red is bad. Okay, pretty simple. Now, influence is, I would call it quite alike to corruption if we're talking about Warhammer 2, which we always are, because it's just kind of how efficient the province is running. And yeah, I know corruption doesn't have this exact same effect, but it's the most likewise thing that I can think of. Now, if you have a high amount of influence in your settlements, they're going to produce more resources, so it's very important that you have over 60% influence, because then you get bonuses on the resources they are producing, and then you can just kind of snowball from there. Whereas if you have terrible influence, you're going to produce less resources and fall further behind. So it's really important to pay attention to influence and make sure it's as high as possible. But all you need to know about increasing it is, once you've done an invasion, just make sure that it's going up. If there's anything that's making it go down, then investigate it and get rid of it to make sure that you're getting the highest possible influence you can. Think of it kind of as the local populace of Troy. That, once you've moved in, you need to make sure that it's under your control before you walk away and leave it. Now, buildings are, again, very similar to previous games, but just with some new resources slapped on. Now, yellow buildings are special and normally unique to the faction or area that they are being built in. These are things like you can recruit harpies from this location, or Menelaus' sworn warriors, or some other ones that we're not allowed to talk about yet. But all you need to know is these are special and can only be built by this faction or in this place. So chances are you want to have at least one of them in your faction. Now, red, just like usual, military buildings, very straightforward, use them to recruit all the different units and upgrade them, and now garrison is actually included in military rather than being a separate tree like it is in Warhammer, so if you want to upgrade garrison, then you need to use the red tree. Now the first purple is administration, and this controls, happiness, influence, growth, all these fun things that are basically just how the province runs, so fairly straightforward there. The other purples are temple buildings, which I covered earlier. These are how you get favour, permanent bonuses, all that funky stuff. No need to go over it again. Blue are ports. Don't really need to say anymore. They get you food, they get you growth. Dead simple. And finally, green are resource buildings. And as I mentioned before, every single minor settlement will be able to build these buildings because they'll have a resource in them. And hovering over them, you'll see, this increases the resources, both standard and when you're at high influence. Some of them will reduce the happiness or the growth or whatever. But all you need to know is green will increase the resources of that specific settlement. So if you need more of those resources, go to the green tree. Now the commandments are again pretty much standard from what we've seen. I'm just going to rattle them off really quickly. And of course, all of these effects are felt locally only. Now every single faction, at least the ones that I could play, have the following commandments. Organized games, which grants +2 happiness and +10 growth. Palace administration, which grants -10 construction cost for all buildings. Established spy network, which grants -10% success rates for enemy agents, -15% fraction cost to friendly agents, and +2 recruit rank for all agents. Trade tithe grants +5% to all resources. And now the final one, I believe it's going to be unique to each faction, at least it was unique to the 2 factions I got to play, but the one for Menelaus is Warrior Games, which grants a -10% recruitment cost for all army units. Now moving on to heroes and agents. Now, if you've played Warhammer, you know that the leader of your army is a lord. In this game, they're called heroes, and you know that the people that you can embed in armies in Warhammer are called heroes, and in this game they're called agents. That's not confusing at all, but we can get over that. Let's just move on. So there are 4 types of heroes that can lead your army, even though they're lords, but I digress. There are archers, defenders, fighters, and warlords, and each of these has variations. So for archers, you can get a skirmisher, which is basically just a sniper, or you can get a trickster, which is a stealthy mobile shooter, which does less damage but has better flanking potential. For defenders, you can get a protector, which is a hardy spearman that can take ungodly amounts of punishment. You can get a companion, which is a speedy spearman that is focused on supporting units rather than outright fighting. You can get a veteran, which is a high damage fighter who can take on basically anyone in the game. For the fighters, you can get a champion, who is a versatile swordsman who is an all-out fighter and does damage and can take a whole lot of it too. You can get a ravager, which is a specialist at disrupting enemy formations. A vanquisher, which ignores signs of danger and just rushes in to attack his foe, so kind of an assassin, but not with an escape plan. And finally for warlords, you can get a mentor, which is an army commander, who is also skilled at territory management. You can get a commander, who improves his army in battle, and a warmonger, who buffs friendly units and debuffs enemy units. Of course, I didn't get a chance to look at every single one of these skill trees because I'm banned the game and only had like 5 days to play of it, and minus a few because I was doing other things. So, these are the best things I can get. But I did go over Menelaus' skill tree, which we'll go over in a little bit, and I believe he is a defender veteran. Thanks, Ice Cream Van. Appreciate you. Dude, it's literally raining outside. Literally raining. Who the fuck wants an ice cream? Thank you. Now, as I said, unfortunately, I won't be able to get these skill trees, every single one of these lords, because I only had 5 days of the game and I was doing other things, so I didn't have a chance to get them all. But from what I can tell from Menelaus' skill tree, it's basically just going to be, you get the lord, and then the skills just revolve around him and his playstyle. So, if you get the skirmisher, he's going to be better at sniping targets, increasing his range damage, probably increasing his unit's range damage. If you get the front lines fighter, he's going to be better at fighting, makes himself tougher, make himself do more damage. All of these things and more will be yours when you upgrade them. But, this is all speculation, so I could be completely wrong, you never know. It's also worth knowing that these skill trees work in an interesting way where you have to take one tree and then lock off the other one. So every single tier have 2 options, and normally these are kind of related to each other, so it'll be, do more damage this way but be slower, or do less damage but be faster. It's one of these things where they kind of improve you in the same way, but just depends how you want to specialize your lords. So you have to pick one, and then once you get that, you can then further upgrade it to, modify it. Say you get an ability that improves your arm pace and damage, you can either upgrade the length of time that it happens. So you can either upgrade the length of time that it can occur for, or you can increase the amount of arm pace and damage it increases that he gets, if that makes sense. So yes, it's an interesting skill tree, and I didn't have a chance to show them all, so I apologise. Also worth knowing, each hero that you recruit will come with different traits that affect their playstyle. I kind of think of this how the Vampire Coast, you can get those that are like, well, this is a plunderer or a treasure hunter or a warlord or whatever, and depending on what they're doing in the campaign, if they're taking settlements, fighting enemy lords, they're going to be getting, more or less loyalty. That's basically what it's like here. I did manage to get a screenshot of a few of these, so I'll just pop them on screen now. But from what I can tell, it just kind of seems like the Vampire Coast mechanic. Now, while they don't have loyalty, they do have something that's called motivation, and this is what these traits are going to be affecting. So if they are doing the thing that they like to do in their traits, then they're going to have high motivation, and they're going to be a more effective leader. If they aren't doing that thing, or they're doing things they don't like, then they're going to be a less effective leader. I don't believe they can mutiny and take away the army, but again, I only played for like 5 days, so I didn't get a chance to experiment with it, but from what I can tell, it's just how effective the army is. So you don't have to worry about it too much, but it should always be something worth considering. Now, agents are basically the heroes of this game, but not the actual heroes, because those are the lords, so that's not confusing at all. I'm just going to rattle all these guys off, show the skill trees, because there isn't really much to say. So we have envoys, which are more of a political agent than for military use. They can reduce army upkeep, increase population locally, increase influence in a target settlement, either owned or unowned, reduce enemy army movement range, reduce enemy agent movement range, and temporarily disable an enemy character. We have spies, who can increase an army sight range. They reduce enemy agent success chance locally, increase replenishment rate of garrisons, damage enemy garrisons, kill or wound enemy agents, and inflict attrition on an enemy army. Priestesses allow armies to complete actions that will buff them, so basically you move the priestess into the army, and it's rather than them appearing on the battlefield, they kind of are just attached to the army. You know, like in Civ, when you're escorting a settler, it's kind of like that. So the priestess is attached, and then before the battle, you get a chance to perform one of these actions, and it's basically just a sacrifice, and you get a nice little upgrade, so it's very nice. They increase happiness locally, just passively. They can increase the favour of either a random god or the god whose temple is built in their target settlement. They reduce the morale of enemy garrisons or enemy armies, prevent enemy agents from moving, and temporarily disable target characters. Again, all these lads have their own skill trees, and again, I really didn't have a chance to get all this footage because I was sweating my butt off trying to get all this stuff done because I'm going on holiday in like a week. So, yeah, you ain't got footage of all this, but again, we can assume that it's going to be related to that character's playstyle and how they perform, so nothing too complicated there. Now, epic agents are not just people from Epic Games who threaten me to say nice things, otherwise they'll kill me. Just kidding, guys. No, epic agents are the mythical creatures behind the myths. So, basically, you know, we have Gorgons, Satyrs, and Seers, and instead of being, you know, an actual Gorgon with snakes and turn people to stone, it's just kind of like a big scary lady. Who doesn't love that? So you can recruit these guys by getting to max favor with a certain god, and then they can perform certain actions, and then once they use these actions, they disappear off the map. So they are kind of very powerful, but they are one use only, and then once they're gone, they're gone. So the Gorgons can use Petrifying Gaze, which severely reduces enemy army morale, Frightening Visage, which severely damages enemy garrisons, and their passive is Horizon of Curses, which reduces movement of enemy armies locally. Satyrs can use the Song of Prosperity, which instantly completes all buildings under construction in a target settlement, which sounds ridiculously strong. You can just like save up all your resources, queue up like 8 buildings at once, and then just pop this guy over and boop, all those buildings are done. That sounds incredibly strong. They can do the Song of Discord. This makes enemy troops less organised and easy to break in battle. I think this just kind of reduces their morale and makes AI play a little bit weird, so that should be interesting to see. And their passive is Song of Tranquility, which encourages growth and happiness locally. Finally, we have Seers, which have a Divine Errand, which is a special mission that requires the unit to visit a specific region of the map, and upon completion, gives the faction leader a bunch of XP. They can also use the Ritual of True Sight, which will gain max favour with the god whose temple is in the target settlement, and their passive is Divining Presence, which grants passive XP to all local heroes and agents. Now, moving on to battle, I don't really have too much to say here because, you know, I'm a big fancy nerd. I don't really play that much battle. I played a little bit of Three Kingdoms, but you know, to me, it just seems fairly similar to those. You know, just the standard rock, paper, scissors of historic games where, you know, you have spears, you have swords, you have archers, you have horses. It's very simple. It's the ancient world. We're not going to see, like, you know, a dragon or anything. Maybe. I don't know. That'd be pretty cool. It's also worth knowing, I'm a massive shitter who prefers auto-resolving to do my battles because my brain is too small. So take these opinions with a massive grain of salt. I know it's not like that's in any short supply lately, but yes, don't take any of this as fact or gospel. I'm just giving you my opinions. One thing quickly to note, sea battles, they're like Warhammer 2. You fight at sea, you just appear on an island, so that's very sad, but, you know, what can you do? So as I mentioned, the standard rock, paper, scissors is still in place, and this is because we're in such a ancient world that you can't really have anything much more complicated than that. Now, if you like this, if you like your, you know, Total War's very nice and simple, and it's just, you know, kind of pure skill, then you'll probably enjoy this. But if you like something that's got a lot more variety, like the reason I like Warhammer so damn much, is because of all the damn unit variety and the faction variety, and how every faction plays a little bit different in every unit. You know, there's so many different things. I really like that complexity, but also it's just interesting visually. So if you do like it, then you'll like this. If you don't like it, then you probably won't like this. But give it a chance. It's free after all. There are also some new terrain types. They're really not that noticeable, honestly. They're pretty much just, you know, standard things. You know, long grass, you can hide infantry in it. Mud slows down your heavy units. Pretty much, if you can think of how a piece of terrain would work in a game, it's going to work like that in this, which I think is a cool thing, to be honest. But, as I said, it's not really going to add too much and be too different. So don't worry about it too hard, but it's definitely there and you should use it if you can, because sneaking up on units through grass can be very effective because you can't really see them coming. Like, when you see some trees, like, well, clearly the wood elves are going to come out of there. When you see some long grass, you're just like, I wonder. So definitely pay attention to the patches of grass once you get into the game, and try to use them as much as you can. I'm going to show the faction rosters as I, get to the factions, but for now, I'm just going to tell you about the extra units that you get, which are the Truth Behind the Myth units. Now, they can recruit either by finding the correct area on the map or by gaining max favor with a certain god. So I'm just going to rattle them off now. If you're wondering why for some of these you just have like an image or a pre-rendered footage, it's because I couldn't get them in time because I'm bad at the game, okay? I'm sorry. So giants are basically large but humanly large warriors who cause fear and can be armed in many different ways, both ranged and melee, and they're generally high damage. Centaurs are horse riding warriors that can be armed different ways, both ranged and melee, so, they're just cav, really. Harpies are mobile skirmishers that work in hit and run tactics. Sirens charm enemy units to approach them before shooting them with slings. The Cyclops is a massive dude with a massive weapon with massive damage and HP, and he can also throw a big old rock and break down gates with ease, and you can get him by getting max Poseidon rank, and he's pretty hilarious when you see him in action. The Minotaur is another massive guy wearing a bull head. He does massive damage, can smash gates and causes fear because of course he does, and to get him you need max Zeus rank. Corybantes are super tough defense-based warriors with the shield wall formation ability, and to get them you need max Hera level. Finally, the Spartoi can go berserk, which makes them stupid strong in combat but also out of control, and to get them you need max Ares level. There we go, that is my overview of all the new shit that's in Troy, okay? Menelaus time. Oh, if you're wondering why these are one video rather than two, it's because stretching that content out, that's who cares about that? I'd rather you just skip ahead into the same video. I mean, it's all the same, you watch it for the same amount of time. And also, the embargo for Menelaus drops today, so I may as well just, tell you all the stuff on the same day that I can tell you about the game at all. Hopefully. Hopefully CA doesn't just strike my video and hate this. I apologise. I did ask, okay? So I should be okay. Now, if you're playing as Menelaus, you're playing as the mighty Sparta, and I love Sparta. They are one of my favourite historical peoples because they are so interesting, even though they're pretty terrible people. I just think, well, I like the movie 300, so I kind of like the romanticised version of Sparta more than I like actual Sparta, but I digress. But anyway, if you want to play as Menelaus and Sparta, you're going to get two faction effects or abilities, if you will. One is Call to Arms, which is basically global recruitment, and why this is so good is because global recruitment isn't a thing for anyone else, so only you have access to it, so you can be deep in enemy lands and get units sent to you. Yes, it's going to be expensive, yes, it's going to take more time like standard global recruitment, but you can do it and no one else can, which is insanely strong. Now, the way it works, it's not just like, okay, well, I can recruit this unit somewhere in my faction, I can recruit from here. No, it works from your allies. So what this basically means is, if you're allies with, say, another Spartan or, Greek faction that's in this sort of archipelago down here. Is that the right word? I don't know. Hey Siri, define archipelago. Yeah, an extensive group of islands. Yeah, that's Greece. Something like that anyway, I'm sorry. Geography was a long time ago, guys. But yes, if you are allies with some of these guys, specifically, proper military or defensive allies, you can recruit units that they give you access to. So each one gives you access to different units, and depending which factions you're friends with, it depends what units you can recruit. It's not just you. So I really like that and think it's super strong, super good. I love it. The other mechanic they have is Spartan colonies, which means you can instantly colonize runes within your line of sight without having an army there. You just click on the runes, you click colonize, it costs some food and resource and stuff, but it doesn't cost any army. So that's pretty amazing because it means you can just see, some ruins over there. You kind of like the Skaven, you just see some ruins and you're like, I'm in there. And then you set up shop. Obviously, if it's, really deep in enemy lands and you haven't got an army nearby to defend it, might not be the best idea, but it's certainly very interesting, especially in the early game. You have some very unique opportunities for spreading out and taking over a large portion of the bottom of the map if you play it right. So I am a big fan of this. Now, for their armies, their playstyle, 300, Spartans, they are heavy infantry. They're backed up by a few slingers, which, let's just forget about those. The romanticised version of Sparta is big-ass spears, super tough armor, maybe not wearing pants. That was a little bit, over-romanticised, if you know what I mean. But, they just had the best front line in the entirety of Greece, in the entirety of the ancient world, in fact. So that's what you get. As for their heroes, each faction can only recruit some of the heroes, so the only one that the Spartans can't recruit is the archers. So, you can still get defenders, fighters, and warlords, just no archers. For their unique units, every faction has unique units, which I think is pretty interesting. They have light spear runners, which have short ranged weapons as well as being excellent in melee. They get bonuses versus large swords and axes, and as well as that, have really good armor piercing damage. They are lightly armored, so have good speed but less protection. They also have axe champions, which have short ranged weapons as well as great melee prowess. They are chargers, which means they work like cav, so are best used to hammer and anvil rather than straight combat, which is odd since they are heavily armoured, so aren't really the fastest. But nevertheless, they have excellent AP damage and a decent charge bonus, so they should be really good. Finally, they have heroic axe warriors, which are kind of like axe champions, but a little bit different with bonuses versus swords and spears, and still outstanding damage from ranged and in melee. They are super tough and shielded, so can take tons of punishment, and are pretty much exactly what you think of when you think of Sparta. Now, for their leader, a little bit of backstory. Basically, Paris of Troy seduced his wife and absolutely cooked him, took her away to Troy, and Menelaus isn't happy being cooked, so he wants to burn Troy to the ground and take her back, even if she doesn't really want to. A little bit morally questionable there, but we'll just glaze over that because it's a pretty cool story anyway. So he's most alike to a defender veteran, He's got a few years under his belt, but can still throw hands with the best of them, do a bunch of damage, super tough. He's just going to be in the front lines, giving passive buffs just by being there. He's really cool. And of course, because he's a faction leader, he gives bonuses to his units in his army. He gives plus 6% melee defense to all units in his army, and plus 4 influence over his current region. His objectives in the campaign are to complete his personal mission line, which you'll just know when you see him. These epic missions that you get, and then you just progress them. There's like 12 of them or something, I think. And then once you're done, you've kind of reached the end of his story, and you should really be taking over Troy at that point. Speaking of which, you need to make sure all of the Troy factions are destroyed. You need to capture Helen of Troy, and you need to hold the 2 factions which are Troy and Knossos? I don't know words, okay, I'm pronouncing things wrong, just bear with me. And you of course need to defeat your first antagonistic faction. So here's just some missed notes of what I perceived when I was playing this campaign. I think it's going to be a really good one for your first campaign, since you're dead in the middle of the story, and your abilities that you have are really strong and are going to make it really easy to quickly expand and get to grips with all of the new systems in Troy. Being able to globally recruit is super strong since only you can do it, so that's going to give you a serious advantage, which again is why I believe this is going to be one of the easier ones for new players. The colonizing rune thing, again, insanely strong. You can send an army towards that rune and then just have it colonized when they get there, and then they can sit in there and defend it. It's excellent, I love it, fantastic, brilliant. And they also have a straightforward battle style, since the Spartans, they're just really front lines. Yes, you have to use ranged units and you lord a little bit, but for the most part, you're just going to out-duel anyone that you basically can, and just make sure that your soldiers don't get shot to pieces. So, again, newbie friendly, which I approve. Also a nice bonus is that you have lots of allies surround you from turn 1. You have your bro up north in Greece, and all the people that start near you, with the exception of your starting war, want to be allies with you and want military alliances and are going to help you in, taking on Troy. So that is a fantastic bonus to have. Super friendly starting location, super strong abilities, fantastic. Now you do end up with a few enemies because, who doesn't, but most of them are quite far away and fairly weak, to be honest. There was nothing that was that strong that gave me any real cause for concern. Once I had a full stack with Menelaus, there wasn't really an army that could get in my way, but I suppose that is Menelaus' whole point. So I could only play to turn 40, but from when I got up to, I thought it was pretty fun. It wasn't too difficult. So, I can't tell how the rest of the campaign is going to go. Maybe after you get to, turn 41, things just go downhill and it gets ridiculously hard. But from what I could tell, it looks fairly easy. So, it should be fun. But yes, I believe that concludes everything that I needed to talk about in this massive overview of Troy and the Menelaus Menelaus. I can't do Greek words. I can barely do English words, guys. Okay, how do you think I'm going to handle Greek? But yes, if you enjoyed this video, then be sure to leave it a like. If you're excited for Troy, leave a comment down below saying, "Ooh, this looks very exciting. It's actually going to be pretty great. I'm going to pick it up for free." Because yes, guys, you can get this game for free. Use code COLONELDAMNEDERS at checkout for absolutely zero difference, because it's free anyway. Just pick it up. It's free. Give it a try. What's the harm? It should be fun. But yes, if you did enjoy this video, you want to see more Troy content, leave a comment down below. I'd be very happy to do that. I've quite enjoyed the time I have with the game so far, and it'd be nice to, expand my horizons and play something that, isn't Warhammer 2 every now and then. It's just a nice change, to be honest. But yes, if you want to see more content from me, then be sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that bell thing. I hear that's a pretty funky thing to do nowadays. It just means that when a video comes up from me, you just can be like, "Oh, ping, there it is. Oh, click on that, give it a little watch. It sounds fantastic. I'd appreciate that oh so much." If you didn't like this video, then be sure to, you know what to do. Leave a dislike, leave a comment, tell me how awful I am, how much you hate me. I'd really appreciate that oh so very much. Yes, I would. But yeah, I believe that covers everything. So I will see you later. And for now, guys, I've been COLONELDAMNEDERS, and I will see you next turn. This is Troy. Sparta.